What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about black privilege. Now, you've probably heard of white privilege. I'm assuming most of you have heard of white privilege. The idea that there are more privileges if you're white in America versus if you're not. I want to show you that blacks in America have a lot more privilege than a lot of people might think, and that black privilege is a thing, and I have benefited from black privilege in many ways. First off, you have things like Black Lives Matter. That's a perfect example of black privilege. You can't have... People are even upset at the fact that you mention all lives matter, let alone saying white lives matter. This is a perfect example of black privilege, being able to say Black Lives Matter and no one thinks otherwise. Having TV programs like BET, Black Entertainment Television. I can only imagine if they had a white entertainment television, what people would even say. Affirmative action. Now, affirmative action, I'll just read the definition. This is from Stanford. And it means of positive steps taken to increase the representation of women and minorities in areas of employment, education, and culture from which they have been historically excluded. Now, blacks have the advantage of having affirmative action to get into schools, to get into universities, because they want to include them, but white people don't have affirmative action. That is exclusively a black privilege and a privilege for women. Going along with affirmative action, you have top-level universities lowering their test scores and their threshold for black students. They have done studies to prove this. Now, I have an article from Breitbart by Ben Shapiro that talks about there are certain universities that would lower their SAT scores for black students, but they would raise it for Asian students. Having a Black History Month. There's no White History Month, but for some reason it's appropriate to have a Black History Month. I personally think black history is American history, and Morgan Freeman talks about the fact that we don't even want a Black History Month. Our history is a part of America, and it should just be included in every other month. We shouldn't have a month dedicated just for black history. It's American history. Blacks are overrepresented in some sports like basketball and even the NFL. But you don't see people trying to bring in white players to the NBA or the NFL. They're okay with the overrepresentation of the black community in certain sports. Being able to use the N-word and call white people explicit words, I won't say them now, but being able to use the N-word at the same time having a double standard, not allowing anyone else to say it because it's racist, but for some reason it's okay for black people to use the N-word. Personally, I think that the word should just be avoided completely and we shouldn't reference it at all. Another good example of black privilege would be the fact that most black individuals are never accused or seldomly accused of being racist. There are many times I hear someone speaking, or a black person, and they're talking and they're being blatantly racist or rude to somebody else, but since they're black, it's like it's okay. It's okay because they're a minority. It's fine to let that pass. Another black privilege would be being able to speak up against Black Lives Matter, like I'm doing. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with Black Lives Matter and their initiative. But if someone who were white said that, they would be accused of being racist. Now, I've had people call me racist for this, but I'm not racist. I just think that Black Lives Matter doesn't truly care about black people. When you look at their rules, when you look at what they've been doing and how they've been conducting themselves, it's very obvious. Black privilege is allowing criminals to be recognized as heroes. When we're looking at George Floyd's case, when we're looking at Jacob Blake's case, when we're looking at Ahmaud Arbery's case, in all these cases, these are black criminals that now, because of the media pandering and the fear of white privilege, they have been transformed into these heroes and people to be emulated, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Another black privilege is being pandered to by woke whites. People that they realize how racist the system is, and they can't help but to bend over backwards for the black community when that's not at all true. And another privilege would be being able to say the phrase woke whites. Now, recently you've probably seen on Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, they have a section called Black Stories. That's definitely a black privilege. There's no section on any of those called white stories, but they have plenty on each and every one that I listed that's called black stories for black movies and black history. The black community and black people definitely have the privilege of unapologetically supporting their race. Unapologetically being black and declaring it and saying it out loud without fear of being persecuted by anyone. Yet if you're white and you were to do the same thing, people would accuse you of being racist. But in the black community, it's okay because you're black. Black people can also use racism as an excuse for anything. For not achieving, for not being able to be as good, for getting bad grades, when most of that can be attributed to maybe they didn't study or maybe they're being lazy. But since they're black, everything's racist, and they can blame racism on all of their problems, and magically that makes everything better. Being a part of black organizations. When I went to University of Akron, there was they had a African American organization that I could have been a part of, and they have special scholarships for black students. There were no white groups, there were no white scholarships, there were just some for black students. And there are even examples of people wanting to be black. When you look at Shaun King and Rachel Dolezal, which in this article by Ben Shapiro covered by Breitbart, he talks about it. These are people that were white that wanted to be black. This is important to note because they wouldn't want to do it unless there were advantages to declaring themselves as black or pretending to be black. So being black in America, there are many, many advantages that come with it, and people just look past it because of racism and oh, we're the minority. But when you look at it, there is truly black privilege, and there are no privileges afforded to white people that are not afforded to black. It's the complete opposite. There are more privileges afforded to black people than there are white people. And this small list is proof of that. So, thank you again, guys. Like I said, I'm going to keep talking about this stuff. This is really important stuff. I fixed the issue. You should be able to comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Or let me know if maybe this changed your mind and maybe I opened your eyes to the fact that, oh, there is black privilege. I didn't think about it in that way. But those are all privileges for black people that we have every day. So, thanks again.